of the Responsible Cities webinar or the Response Seminar. Thank you for the very high level of engagement that we had on the last session that we did on solid waste. We called it Is Waste the New Oil? And the response from all of you was consistently active and exciting. That encouraged us to invite another very distinguished professional who has been working for 2 decades in this area of solid waste management. And she came into this business. Her name is Vilma Rodriguez. She runs a company called Sahas, which is a social enterprise, and she has tried to see how she can make this balance between, well, economic efficiency and ecological good. And when she came into the business, there was really nobody who was interested in solid waste. 18, 19 years later, she now has reached a reasonably satisfying level of managing interface with public generators of waste to a point where her company Sahas is converting up to 25 tons a day. Now, these are inspiring, even if they are isolated, examples of what public enterprise, social enterprise, and private enterprise can do to convert waste to wealth or trash to cash, as this session is themed. As you saw in the mailers and such that you got, India today is way down on the ranking of the quantum of waste that we generate. We generate only about 150,000 tons or about 45 million tons a year of solid waste. This is against China's 190 to 200 million tons a year, and the United States, with only a sixth of our population, or maybe a third of our population at 380, 400 million, they are producing as much as 260 million tons a year. Now, even if this is so, the challenge has been inside the country of how the visible sides or impacts of solid waste are managed better. We know the number of complaints that come from citizens as well as from the media on what cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, and NCR have to do, as well as of course, the other cities on solid waste itself. I will now request Vilma to take you through a set of about 30 slides. She's going to run you through what she believes is the context for solid waste management and the challenge before us into the next 5-10 years. And then she will respond to about 17 critical questions before the waste management sector. Over to you, Vilma.
Yeah, thank you. And this is a great opportunity. And, you've been talking about all the problems around waste. But actually these, as an organization, as a company with a business model, we've been looking at how to actually convert this problem of waste into an opportunity. So let me start by actually introducing you to actually a concept of zero waste. Because when you look at, waste, which has the fractions of wet and dry, and both these fractions can actually be converted into resources. So today, the conversations that we are really having with our government and with the municipal corporation and with the rules that are introduced in various different, by different governments, the conversation is more around zero waste systems or moving from a linear economy to a circular economy, which will convert 90% of our waste into resources. But of course, in India, the biggest problem continues to be the fact that the focus is more on just collection and disposal to sites which are away from the city or away from the town, mixed waste, and that's where we run into all the kinds of problems, because once the waste is mixed, it's very difficult to really recover or to convert waste into resources. Nevertheless, organizations like ours and across the world are now, as I said earlier, moving from a situation where waste was just disposed in a linear manner to actually recovering waste, to recycling it, and thereby recovering resources. So our organization Sahas Zero Waste, has been working in this space now with a business model for the last 4 years, but previously as a not-for-profit since 2001. Now, as a business model, we have 3 verticals, and the first vertical is really looking at how to manage waste within large campuses. So you have what you call the bulk generators or the institutional generators, which are the large tech parks, the large corporate campuses, the large apartment complexes, and each of these campuses, if they make a small space available within the campus, then all the waste which the campus generates can actually be managed within that particular campus itself, so that you have then a zero waste campus. And this is the kind of service that we offer end to end to all these bulk generators. Our second vertical is addressing mostly waste which is post-consumer waste, whether it is electronic waste or packaging waste. Today, embedded in our legislation, not just in India, but across the world, companies are expected to actually take responsibility for the end-of-life material in the form of packaging or electronic waste that is generated and put out in the public domain. And they're supposed to have reverse logistics system to collect and then to recycle. So we offer and we partner with companies like Tetra Pak to actually take back and recycle their post-consumer waste. And finally, we close the loop by sale of recycled products so that waste can come back to our living spaces and demonstrate thereby how a closed or a circular economy can actually be beneficial to all of us. So looking at principles, therefore, of a circular economy, you're really looking now, we are looking and demonstrating how waste, when it is transformed into resources, it does not cause all the negative implications of, pollution, repercussions on the environment. But at the same time, whilst it's addressing environmental rules, environmental problems, it's also creating livelihoods. It's also providing opportunities for livelihoods, not just at the base of the pyramid or from lower economic backgrounds, for people from lower economic backgrounds, but also good alternative careers to young professionals. So the circular economy concept is really about now ethical businesses and giving opportunities to a whole lot of new businesses, both in the small scale as well as in the SMEs, and even larger companies now can run waste management businesses. I'd just like to touch upon the fact that in India we have very good and comprehensive legislation around waste management. So you have the first solid waste management rules, which came out in 2001. And now in 2016, you have a revision of the rules, and you have rules which are also addressing packaging waste, plastic waste, electronic waste, biomedical waste, and also all kinds of hazardous waste. So the whole focus of this rules is to address waste at the source of where it is being generated, convert it into resources, and therefore have a situation where you will manage waste rather than have it dumped, burnt, or put out into a landfill. In India, we've had traditionally a very good recycling tradition where you have the informal sector participating in resource recovery. But we need to move away from the informal way in which waste was being managed or the resource recovery was taking place, because there is repercussions both in terms of human health as well as environment, because one has to understand that the informal sector, with all its limitations, are not able to really manage fractions of waste which have low economic value, and material which had low economic value but can be recycled very often ended up being dumped or burnt, which is again then has its own environmental problems. So whilst the approach now with organizations like us is to actually move towards formalizing the informal sector, bringing them into a more disciplined workforce and making sure that all types of waste get managed, even if it is it has a cost implications. And so we would like to, bring attention to the fact again that whilst we talk of, converting our trash to cash, and obviously there is revenues that you generate, when waste is recovered, but there is a very big operational cost around this. And therefore, in all our business models now, companies like us, organizations like us, our business model is based on revenues from waste as well as revenues from a service fee that we charge to the generator of waste or to the various different municipal corporations that we work with. The road to zero waste is really there is a very comprehensive process which has to be followed, which makes the service fee very necessary, because you want to manage not just all the types of waste, but you want to have professional systems in place, including use of technology for capturing data, for being able to load and unload material. So there's a whole process involved to bring us to this comprehensive system, which we are looking at and calling a zero waste system. I would just like to, also look at the fact that one has to see that in this whole process, you're not just managing waste, but you're also bringing products back into the system, and products which can be used, and that's how waste can be holistically managed. Let me come to the questions which the questions that have been put to me with respect to the whole concept and the business that we have developed over these last few years. And the first question that at number 17, we are being asked this question about the bulk generators. Bulk generators, as I said earlier, are the huge institutional generators of waste defined by people, campuses, businesses, institutions that generate more than 100 kgs of waste in one campus collectively. And in a city like Bangalore, and even in our other cities in India, these bulk generators actually contribute anything between 40 to 50% of the waste that the city generates. So whereas Bangalore generates 4,000 tons of waste, about 2,000 tons of waste is contributed by the bulk generators. What happens is that whilst the municipal corporation really offers door-to-door services which to households, the bulk generators are not part of this collection, and so they have to be their waste is managed by private players like us. The question, how much is unregulated domestic sector contributing daily? Apart from the bulk generators and the door-to-door collection from the municipal corporation, there is about 10 to 15% of waste that does not get collected because waste from people actually who are in low-income areas, etc. Their waste does not get collected, and this becomes the unregulated sector that where the waste very often gets dumped in the open. Question number 16, which ULB has done the most and at the lowest capital cost per ton of waste management in India? Any city takes the top spot for good performance. Basically, this question is, in India, really, there is very little data capture taking place. So typically, we are seeing that, we really don't have data to be able to compare the different cities or the different urban local bodies. But typically, Bangalore has a budget of about 500 to 600 crores, which is the annual budget that is available for the waste management system in the city of Bangalore. Most of this money is spent towards collection and transportation, very little really towards processing. So therefore, this is more a budget towards disposal rather than towards waste management. Question number 15, the number of biomethanation plants are very low in the country. That is true because currently biogas plants really have been working on technologies which are very somewhat outdated and old, and therefore not really addressing the whole biogas is meant for wet waste management, and in these older technologies we have seen that the spectrum of waste, which is a lot of uncooked food, is not really being solved by the biogas plant. So we've not had very good successes with biogas, and that is why the reluctance for even government and for private players to actually invest in biogas plants. At the moment, biogas is again getting some amount of attention. In Bangalore, we now have two large centralized biogas plants. They are very new, so one is yet not, we're not really sure how in the long term these plants will actually address our organic waste or our wet waste management issues. Question number 14. How have waste management economics been for ULBs? Has there been a revenue at all? Or is it only a story of expenditure budgets all these years? So basically, we know that the management of waste takes a lot of operations, and the way the ULBs have been managing waste management systems, there is the focus of collection and disposal, for which the urban local bodies have put budgets around this. But at the same time, the informal sector has also been partially integrated into all of the systems. So recovery takes place in an informal way. The revenues from that waste the beneficiary of those revenues is the informal sector. So really, that money doesn't go back as such to the municipal corporation. But actually, in a waste management system, the revenues are not something that one needs to look at. Whilst it is there as a revenue, finally it is important for the processing of waste to take place, and so therefore budgets need to be tracked in the sense of has to be looked at from the processing rather than just revenue for the municipal corporation. Question number 13. How much does a city corporation like Bangalore spend on solid waste management? And yeah, the BBMP or the municipal corporation in Bangalore is around, even currently around, it is the annual outlay for waste management is about 500 crores a year. This amount is again used mainly for collection and transportation. So really it does not address the environment problems. And so therefore we would like to see more budget, more money is being allocated for segregation at source awareness and for processing in a decentralized manner. Question number 12, what is the willingness of residential societies to manage the waste at source and help ULBs create more zero waste, more zero garbage zones? There is a lot of resistance from residential societies because at up to this point, there was no big push or no big requirement for them to actually take this responsibility of managing their own waste. And this added expenditure that they have to put is something that is being resisted. But of course, there is again the push from the municipal corporation and notices being sent to them that they have to take care of their waste and pay for this waste management service. Question number 11, how successful has been the PPP structure in the area of solid waste management across ULBs? Is there such a financing mechanism? In a decentralized system, and today the municipal solid waste rules are supporting a decentralized system. So in a decentralized system where every ward in a city is expected to have its own waste management system, a public-private partnership really works well, where you can have land given to you by the municipal corporation, and then you can have a corporate or an NGO or a social enterprise like us actually manage the infrastructure. Now, this is in theory, but really in practice, and in Bangalore, we've had some experiences on this. Where we get into problems is that the understanding of the operational costs is little understood, and therefore, the kind of budgets that have to be allocated for field staff, for supervision, for data capture, these kind of budgets we're not able to get them from just the sale of waste. And the service fees are really something that is not understood. So therefore, all these private-public partnerships, SAHAS itself, our NGO SAHAS, has been working a little bit with the municipal corporation to sort out these issues. But so there is some distance before we can say that that these systems are working well. The financing mechanism is there available, the revenues from waste and the service fee, but the reluctance to pay service fees is where the real problem lies. Question number 10, what is RDF and what is the current capacity in India? Are these figures of demand and supply? So RDF is the refuse-driven fuel. Today, again, you have some centralized facilities where mixed waste is being converted into RDF. But the ultimate destination of RDF today is either the cement kilns or a few waste-to-energy plants. That I'm giving you a Bangalore example where RDF in a couple of thousands of tons for several years has been sitting in some of our facilities, and there has been no real destination or market for it. The reason being that in India, the organic waste fraction is really very high in our waste, and so the calorific value of this material is still very low, and so therefore cement kilns also don't find it useful. Our waste to energy plants are not yet up there, fully operational. So there is really the whole market really is still, I would say, undeveloped and not yet ready for RDF. At the same time, there is a lot of discussion on how the conversion, we should be really recovering 90% of waste in the form of organic waste, which should have a destination of a biogas center or a composting system, and paper plastic going into recycling. So really there is only a small fraction of waste which should actually go into a waste to energy plant so that we can actually encourage circular economy and a zero waste system. So therefore that conversation is happening parallelly, even as waste to energy, etc., is being talked of and conversion to RDF. Question number 9, between waste to compost and waste to energy, what do you see as the larger market in the next 3 to 6 years? Now, this is something that needs to be understood very well, because in a zero waste system, you will have 60% of waste being converted, organic waste being converted to compost or to biogas. And then you have another 30% of the waste really being recycled into different, paper and plastic being recycled. So waste to energy, the space that it should occupy and the importance that it should be given is really much less than the other solutions that you have. And we hope that that is the road that India will take, where waste to energy will definitely have, there will be a need for waste to energy, but not to take care of all our waste, but just the fraction of waste which is not recyclable or which is to whatever small extent mixed waste. So we hope that waste to compost will have definitely a much larger market in the next few years than waste to energy. Question number 8. How does payback work for residential apartments of 100 flats? Yeah. So really all our bulk generators have to understand that there is a net service fee that needs to be paid out for waste to be managed. And even if you're looking at wet waste being converted into biogas, there is a high capex component that residential apartments have to put in order that they can convert their waste to biogas. But even there, we have seen that for smaller biogas plants, the return on investment, especially for smaller amounts of 500 tons, etc., is the ROI is really very small and very little compared to if you're looking at a larger biogas centralized plant, where you can bottle the LPG. So in a smaller situation, a biogas plant should be used to address the waste issue. And the equivalent of getting gas perhaps will not really bring in revenues in that sense, but your waste will be addressed. Let's look at question number 7. As a private sector player, how does one partner with ULBs for solid waste management? Right now, as the government and the municipal corporations, the urban local bodies are inviting private organizations like ourselves to take part as a waste management service provider or as a contractor, if you want to put it like that. So yeah, there is now opportunities for private sector to participate and support the urban local bodies and the municipal corporations to provide end-to-end waste management services. Question number 6. What's total TPD of waste for a city like Bangalore? How much is wet waste? What are the other wastes that can be turned to wealth? So wet waste makes up 60% of the total waste, and Bangalore generates about 4,000 tons of waste per day. So I would really like to, kind of respond to this concept of waste to wealth. So when you're looking at waste being converted into resources, the focus that the end product that you get really is something that, of course, brings in some amount of value, but actually the entire operational cost must also be taken into account. So finally, there is really no net revenue which can actually go back to the generator, but the generator needs to actually pay for services around waste. So therefore, when you're talking of waste to wealth, the incentive for waste generators should be the wealth that is created or that is achieved because of reduction of emissions, better environment, cleaner air, soil, water. So the resources in the form that are saved should be the wealth, rather than just look at wealth in the form of cash or actual monies. Unfortunately, in India, it is the money that seems to be an incentive, and that then becomes also a limiting factor for organizations like us, which find it difficult to explain why people should pay a service fee. And again, that comes back to why apartments or even large corporates are actually resisting better waste management systems, because there is a lack of understanding of what this wealth that is created from waste is all about. Let's look at question number 5. Our cities today put out about 150 tons per day. Delhi, Bombay produces 7,000 to 8,000 tons per day. Of course, it's a large quantities, but if we can really convert this waste into resources, there would be tremendous positive impact on environmental impact, on health impact, and of course on livelihood. Today in India, we are facing a problem of offering jobs, especially to people with low academic skills. So this is a very good opportunity if we would actually concentrate and focus more on resource recovery. Question number 4. A year's solid waste in India is about 50 million tons. China is, at 190 to 200 with the same population, and the US is 260 million tons a year with a quarter of our population. Where does India go from here? So India should be a leader. India has been a leader with high rates of recycling, and India has had a very good tradition of reduce. So I think India, should definitely be looking at continuing in this old tradition of being conservative in its consumption patterns, and also showing the way forward towards recovery of resources, zero waste systems, and a circular economy. So we should be leading the conversation on this front. Question number 3. What are the tech solutions available for waste to wealth? How much can be decentralized for the bulk generators, and is zero waste garbage zones possible? I think Saahas, with its demonstration of 25 tons per day currently in Bangalore and Chennai, where we have customers who are large apartment complexes and large tech parks, and we've shown that these entities are actually converting 90% of their resources, of their waste to resources. So really it is possible. It does take far more effort and it takes amount of space, but there is technology available, indigenous technology which has been developed in India, where you can compost on site 5 tons, 10 tons of waste per day. You can also use biogas. So all of these solutions are available. There is a certain cost attached to it. There's a certain operational cost attached to it, but it is for sure very possible. Question number 2, space and odor are major blocks in bulk consumer minds when it comes to installations. I think, again, technology today, when you see, for instance, if I may draw a parallel to our sewage treatment plants, where again the issues of space and odor are addressed to technology, to using filters, to having underground systems. So all of that is also applicable for composting and biogas, and is fully possible that we can overcome all of these problems. Finally, the last question, what are regulations that govern an RWA or a bulk generator only on solid waste management in Bangalore today or in other cities? So Bangalore again is leading from the front in that our municipal corporation, as part of its ULB policy, has actually put out a bulk waste generator policy saying that all bulk generators should manage their waste and do it with private organizations. So we do believe that now other cities, Chennai has slowly come up with this policy as well. So all the other cities will go this route, because they understand that probably, when 50% of waste or 40% of waste is being generated by bulk generators, they can manage their own waste, and then the municipal corporation will not be overwhelmed by the larger quantities that they have to manage. So I think with that, we've kind of taken all these questions, And I would look forward to the audience further questions that they may have.
Thank you, Wilma, for that tour de force of sorts on can cities turn trash to cash. Like you wrote to me on that mail, it's a subject that is fascinating. It's a subject that is challenging into this future that we have before us. And as you very rightly said, India has to be the leader in this segment. It, we have had a tradition for 2000 years and more of being conservative and austere in our consumption. I don't see why we can't be that kind of a leader, is what you're saying effectively. Besides, as you know, and I think you mentioned this in passing, the technology is indigenous and we have been leaders and pioneers in this area of technology for at least the last 25 years. Not even China, I think India has been leading this. All of your listeners, thank you for staying with us all through. There must be a deal of learning for you. And as Vilma said, any of those questions that you have, please put them up. We have already received some of them, which we shall ask her uh, after this. While I welcome Ludovic Jonar. Are you there, Ludovic?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
Yeah,
But,
not at all.
just
A
so
great pleasure having you here. For all of you who have not heard Ludovic on the last session, I must tell you that he is one of those very pioneering development architects who, over about a quarter century, has worked in three or is it four continents in Asia, in Africa, and in the Americas, apart from, of course, Europe itself. And his work has been primarily in areas of natural disaster management, as his profile says, although it is in French, in the mailers that we sent to you all. Ludovic has been a friend and a co-traveler in these deep purposes of ecological, uh, you know, uh, straddles that we all have to do. Over to you, Ludovic, for any concluding remarks and suggestions that you would want to make upon that wonderful session that Wilma Rodriguez offered us.
yes, thank you so much, Harry. I'm happy to join again this webinar. I'm very impressed by the quality of this session, although I missed the beginning because I read the PowerPoint presentation earlier, and I really appreciate the countdown and the questions.
Ludovic,
Maybe,
I'll step in. Sorry, I will step in to ask you to hold the mic closer so that listeners don't have trouble hearing you. Thank you.
sorry, I'm very close. Is it better now? Is it much better?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I would make only one or two comments, adding what has been said earlier. One is I think ULBs have a really major role to play in the appropriation of these new technologies by the consumers, and my concern is more to have a strategy about what kind of incentives the end users, the users, those who are going to recycle, to reuse, or to follow the new regulation, what would be their reason for which they would like to contribute and to reuse and recycle their waste. They also have to be part of the winning game. It's not only a company or a PPP that will solve the problem. If we don't have the commitment of the end users, it won't work. And the second comment I would make, I completely agree with the role of India. India has a major background on this and a knowledge and a great concern about waste reuse and recycling. And I would like India to be more proactive in the other developing countries instead of looking at China and Europe and US again and again. We know that the development model is a very impressive and very concerning about the planet. I would look at Africa as the main territory for the next 20 years of investment, and to avoid Africa to develop the same consumer model as we did in Europe, or what we witness in China. So I wish Indian professionals and experts and expertise to be brought in these emerging countries, which are going to be very impacting the planet in the next decades. So I think this is more or less my two comments I would like to share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ludo. Vilma, would you want to offer either a response or a last word to this presentation?
Yeah, I mean, really the you know, I just wanted to articulate that there's a lot of hope that you know, this whole concept of circular economy can actually be demonstrated in a larger way. So you know, if we can constantly just think about what our world would look like if we can, you know, really embrace this whole concept of a circular economy. I mean, we would be addressing a lot of the environment issues and have a much cleaner planet.
Fair enough. That I think is a sum up. Back to you, listeners. There are these questions that have come from you all. We're now going to ask Vilma to see if she wants to respond to any of them or to see that she takes them offline with you on mails. Thank you so much.